The nation of Canirania is a nation of untold legend. I promise you have not heard this one before. It's a place where love is not just legal, it's mandatory. A place where every Sunday is a religious celebration. And is typically observed in our secret church, which is hidden just under the bedsheets. The sole doctrine of this church is to experience love and joy and pleasure. The current population of Canirania is only 2, and is located here in Amsterdam. And this is the story of how that nation came to be. But first, I want to tell you about one of my most favorite movies. It's got drag queens, it's got punk rock, it's got tasteful nudity. This movie is called Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's easily one of my top 10 favorite movies. And in this movie, there's a song. It tells this familiar tale of how we used to be these round, 2-headed creatures until Zeus, king of the gods, grabbed up a lightning bolt and split us down in half before dividing us in 2. During this scene, there's this image, an image that has stuck with me ever since I first saw it. It's an image of 2 stick figures lying together on a blanket underneath a set of stars. This, hopefully, was the image that I drew onto a little piece of paper, which I then folded in half and hung into a tree one day before the ritual began. This ritual in question, it was part of this event called Where the Sheep Sleeps. For those of you who know about Burning Man and those kind of hippie things, it was like that, except smaller and more Dutch. It's not a bad thing. Things can be Dutch too. And the idea was that I had made a wish among so many other wishes that people would take and then burn on the final day. Now, I do want to set the record straight. I'm not the kind of person who typically believes in this kind of shit, okay? Honestly, when they said make a wish, I didn't even know what to write. That's why I panicked and drew a picture instead. Because people who talk about wishes and manifestations often have like a catalog of crystals or something else they want to sell you. And with all due respect to those people, I don't have time for that. Nor do I have the money. Have you seen the prices of groceries at the Albert Heijn? Okay. To be fair, I wasn't in a really good place when this was happening. And maybe I was searching for something, because you might find this familiar. I was crawling out of that global psychological war zone, otherwise known as the pandemic, and I was searching for meaning in anything. Because before the pandemic, my life was fine. Ever since the day I arrived here from Canada, I've been building this little empire for myself. I had this job, this okay job. Maybe it wasn't the most meaningful of work, but I climbed the corporate ladder just enough that I was comfortable. I enjoyed my colleagues. I had fun. And I had a relationship too. A stable and committed relationship. Until it turned out that it wasn't stable, nor was it very committed. And upon this realization, I knew I had to end it. It was just unfortunate that this happened just as the world began to lock down its borders and the panini started to take effect. So, and then my job, this job that I had, this comfortable job, it made an announcement during the pandemic. There was going to be some restructuring. And that meant not just my job, but the job of the people that I was managing was going to be lost. And suddenly this question of where did my love life go wrong began to perfectly intertwine with the comments and concerns from my colleagues that I could no longer support. And I felt alone, and I felt isolated, and they would be messaging me on my laptop, asking me questions that I just don't have the answer to, and I can't support them. And I would be getting my phone calls, my lawyer, telling me that I need to fight. I need to fight for that severance. At the very least, I should be getting some garden leave. And then there's HR. I hope this email finds you well. I hope this email finds you well. You need to come to the office. You need to come to the office. Let's talk. Come to the office. Never mind that we're not even supposed to leave the house. Please come to the office. And my lawyer would tell me, you have to keep fighting. Tell them that you're sick. Tell them that you're tired. And so I'd write back emails saying, I am sick and I'm tired. I'm sick and I'm tired and I'm unable to breathe. For a few seconds, I'm unable to breathe. It's like I've forgotten how. And for a few seconds, I swear I'm going to suffocate and I'm going to die alone in my apartment. You might call that a panic attack. But for me, it was a sudden realization. And I began to paint it as this metaphor in my head where I was walking down this trail, wearing a blindfold, with this kind of excited Labrador Retriever energy, picking up pieces of happiness like it was a trail of candy. And only when I reached the edge of the cliff did I remove that blindfold and see beneath me that there was a storming sea. Did I see how the jagged rocks were calling me? One more step, I would have fallen in. And so I said, no more. Now, luckily, my lawyer was able to secure me that garden leave in the end. And my severance combined with social insurance meant I didn't have to work for a while. So I took the time for myself. Step one, I had to learn how to breathe again. I hope none of you ever get to experience the sensation when you breathe and you realize that you can't take a deep breath, that your lungs are only at 50% capacity. I had to learn how to open up my chest again. So I started running. And it did help. Getting outside and running, it began to help. But the problem was, when I wasn't running, I was tired. And when I was tired, my mind was being flooded with thoughts telling me that I am foolish and I am a failure. So step two, I did the only thing I can think of. I smoke weed. Yeah. I smoke weed every day. And it works. Suddenly I don't have these thoughts anymore. And suddenly I am in my mind like Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski. And the world is on fire, and people are panicking, and there's crowd control, a museum pine, water cannons, police on horses, batons. None of this affects me, man. I'm in my apartment in Belmar, I'm listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I'm doing fine. But there was a problem.
Uh-oh.
When I would wake up in the morning, there would be nothing but fog in my brain. And I began to miss myself. So step three, I began to put in some work. And I began to ask some hard questions of myself. And again, I painted it like this metaphor, where inside me there was this pile of shit that I just wasn't getting through. And so I began to dig deeper and deeper until I found in the center of that pile was a crying little boy. And he was being surrounded by voices saying to him, "You are not good enough. Your efforts are wasted on you. If you can't be happy, if you can't entertain the people around you, then you are a burden, and you deserve to be alone." When I listened to those voices, and I realized that it was my own, I became deeply embarrassed. because never in my life would I talk to a child the way that I was speaking to my inner child. And so I changed tactic. And I went down on one knee, metaphorically, and I raised my hand and put it onto this child, metaphorically. And I said to him, I'm going to listen. Just tell me what's wrong. Tell me what is so scary in this world that you feel the need to cry. We are surviving a pandemic. Why is that not enough? When I saw my wish go up in flames, with so many other wishes surrounding it, I felt within myself a sense of rejuvenation. That after a weekend of dancing, of wild, naked dancing, of honest conversation, honest, naked conversation, and workshops, breath work, body work, tantra, all of this put an energy within inside of me that I was ready to share. So I went back to Amsterdam and I asked her, show me everything that life has to offer. I suggest we all ask Amsterdam this, because do you know what she does? She comes back to you with a buffet of options. This is true. And so I made a deal with myself. I got down, I rose up from my feet, I put my hand up in the air, and I said, as long as I was understanding consent, as long as I was respecting the boundaries of myself and others, and as long as I was being safe, then I didn't have to feel ashamed anymore. And as God is my witness, as God is my witness, I could consider myself to be sexually liberated.